Welcome back to another episode of TVGP's Critical Misses and a brand new season, season 19, which is a very large number. I'm your,
Yes.
I'm your host, Boston. Joining me as always is Moonpear.
Howdy.
We are going to be covering romantic comedies for the season, a little bit of the rom-coms here for season
Mm-hmm.
19. Figured we'd do a little something different here. We haven't really covered any rom-coms yet, and
I have almost zero experience with them too.
okay, good, because that was going to be my intro here. Because I don't really know anything about this movie, which we'll get to here in a minute. But reminder that if you wanted to hear us talk about producing this season, figure out how we got to this season in general, kind of how we decided on this theme, along with maybe a season or two of kind of shocking gaps in our knowledge. The
Mm-hmm.
production meeting is a Patreon exclusive over at patreon.com/E1M1.
The ones and numbers.
You can hear the uncut, uncensored, a quick episode at an hour and change, pretty much every time, where we figure out what seasons we're going to talk about coming up and stuff like that. This one was a really good one. I think we found two themes that both have about 75 movies in them. So if you were worried about us
Uh-huh.
running out of stuff in this show, worry not.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
Yeah, but we're going to be watching 2019's Long Shot here. I'm sure there's probably 50 other movies called Long Shot, but it's a 2019 one. I know. So, in looking up at this season, I wanted to try and come up with 5 movies that have kind of come out across the last couple of decades. So I got some stuff in the 80s, some stuff in the 90s, some 2000s stuff, and then here's kind of our most recent one in 2019. And it's a mix of, there's like two very famous romantic comedies coming here later in the season, and
Mm-hmm.
there's some more recent ones and some that there's always those movies where people are like, "Oh man, if you love this genre, just go see this movie. You don't have to know anything about it." A lot like our last movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Like, hey man, you like weird stuff? Go watch that thing. Don't worry about what it's about. Don't worry. That's this movie for romantic comedies. So a lot of recommendations are like, "Oh man, you love romantic comedies? You should really watch Long Shot." It's one of those allegedly kind of not what it seems kind of movies, which
Mm-hmm.
seems fun. And that's kind of all I know about it because when do we get a chance to go into a movie almost completely blind in the the year of our Mario 2023? So
That is true.
yeah. Um, but and I'm assuming you don't really know anything about this movie that we haven't heard of before.
I Googled the name and then immediately was like, oh, I saw a trailer for that, and I was very interested in that at the time,
Perfect.
and now of course I haven't seen it
Right.
since then. So this is the Charlize Theron movie with
Mm,
the other guy.
that guy. The
Yeah,
other one.
Seth Rogen. That's the name.
Okay. That's an interesting combo. I think my knee jerk concern is I hope it's not the type of like ne'er do well dude gets the hot lady just because for reasons. I feel like that's how a lot of these romantic
Yeah,
comedies always go, where it's like, oh, here's a guy, and here's like the hottest woman on the planet, and they're in love for some reason. It's like, oh,
and
okay,
Charlize Theron could certainly qualify for that at
for
some
sure,
point.
yeah. So
Um,
interesting.
I also, from what I understand, this is also based around the White House.
Oh, okay, that's certainly not the setting I was expecting. All right, I'm kind
Hmm.
of I'm kind of curious to watch this. But since we
And there's
know,
definitely
okay,
politics. I know that
right,
much,
right.
but it's not the feature of the movie.
If anything can bring us together, it's politics.
Mm.
um, since we don't know too much more about the movie than that, and you mentioned it earlier, what are your kind of overall, I guess, feelings, experience overall with this kind of massive genre in romantic comedies?
I think it's a 50-50 because we made the joke on Wayward Sons about quote unquote chick flick moments.
Okay.
It's a joke in the very first episode of Supernatural is no chick flick moments, which
Okay.
is ironic considering what that show becomes.
Right. Well, and that's very much
well,
of its era of this like divisive, like I don't think we hear the phrase chick flick too much anymore, thankfully, because it kind of sucks. But that was really the prevailing attitude of that time is like, ugh, movies for women, am I right?
Yeah, and like I think the problem is the comedy has to land.
Right.
And like you said, I'm not interested in a movie where an entitled D-bag gets the girl.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not interested in a movie where an entitled woman gets the guy.
Right.
Like, I mean, let's talk about Love Actually.
Okay. Let's talk about Love Actually, a movie that is not in this season of.
Correct, because we've also both seen it probably several times.
I have seen it a number of times. Yes.
That is a quote unquote romantic comedy, one might argue.
I think you could make that case. Yeah.
There is only two couples, well, two stories in that movie, I feel, which are any good.
Okay. Which one specifically?
Three, maybe. The Prime Minister.
Okay.
I think his is pretty solid.
Yep.
The writer in the mountains, like trying to learn a foreign language,
man,
so he
a
can.
classic. Yeah.
That is
just
the
in
best
cases.
one
Like it's such a good scene. Yep.
And the son, Liam Neeson's son. That's it.
I like the one with the two stand-ins for the like romantic scene in the movie. I like those two of this kind of like meet cute on the adult film set.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
It's very like it's probably the thinnest of all the couples in the movie, but I kind of like this like crazy, huh? Oh, love at first sight. Okay.
Yeah, Rick from The Walking Dead's story, he can go away. Like that entire.
Yeah,
I don't feel comfortable about that one. I don't know. It's like that's a good example of like here is a couple of different stories.
Mm-hmm.
Only a couple of them really hit hard for me because they are actual, with heart stories.
Yeah.
Whereas the rest of them either have horrendous jokes or horrendous implications.
Mm-hmm.
With regards to the people involved. And rom-coms are very much the same, where it's like, if it doesn't have the right story and the right jokes, it will turn me off immediately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, there's some that like, it's difficult to pass.
Well, and it needs to have the right combination of romance and comedy. Like, I feel like the key to it is there has to be the romance. These aren't, I don't think any of these are kind of pure romance movies, which I like a romance every once in a while. So sure, why not? But if it has a good balance of the two, I think that's where, for me, it hits really hard.
So it's a more general blending of genres, but Palm Springs, I think, is a fantastic example of a good romantic comedy.
Yep.
Nihilistic as hell, but a good romantic comedy.
Right.
The first Deadpool movie is a fantastic romantic comedy.
Yep.
And also because that's also a case where both of the people are damaged, one might say.
Right. I mean, the famous example, too, is Notting Hill. Like, that's totally a romantic comedy. Yeah.
It is.
It's also the movie that people have probably seen about 50 bajillion times. I still like it, but, it's...
I'm trying to remember if I like it or not. I honestly can't remember. I think I do.
Yeah.
It's got some of those memed
Oh, 100%.
things
Yeah.
in it.
Yeah.
Oh, 10 Things I Hate About You. Perfect
An
romantic
all-time
comedy.
yeah, an all-time classic. One of my favorites. So good.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah.
But
So I mean,
there's a bunch I haven't seen, so like I don't
right.
know.
Yeah, it's definitely a favorite genre of mine because, like I mentioned, when you can get that good balance between romance and comedy, you kind of get the best of both worlds. Like you get the, you know, just in cases kind of romance part of Love Actually, and then you get stuff that is genuinely very funny. And I think the balance between the two is really great. And I like a good I like a good romance. I like to sit there and get, you know, misty eyed and be like, ah, true love. Ah, look at these kids falling in love. I'm 41,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, like it's
Yeah.
it feels good seeing kind of a movie like that. And I feel like another great thing is we kind of have, not every movie obviously is going to be like a feel good thing, and we aren't going to be able to cover. We're not like, this isn't the feel good movies show or anything.
No.
But it's nice kind of having a a season that, even if there's strife in the movie, you know, most act 2 endings of romantic comedies is like, I'll never see you again. What you did was unforgivable. And then, you know, they meet back up again 6 months later and they're like, well, fine. I guess I love you. Smooch, smooch,
Yes.
smooch.
What's the 'cause John Cusack was a romantic comedy person. Everyone like put him in as the next Tom Hanks. Essentially, it
Serendipity?
feels like that's the one.
Yep.
I don't know if I ever want to see that movie ever.
I
I know someone writes their number on $1. That much I know.
I believe I have seen that, and I remember thinking it was better than it seemed. That's always the risk with romantic comedies too, because like when you put this stuff on paper, it's sort of like, yeah, okay, sure. Like The Holiday, one of my favorite romantic comedy movies of all time. Kind of a dumb premise, but
I don't even know what that is.
oh man, it's Jack Black. Um, it's Jack Black in probably his best serious role of all time. It's Kate Winslet, Cameron Diaz, Jude Law, Jack Black, and it's essentially like Kate Winslet and Cameron Diaz switch countries to kind of get
Mm-hmm.
over a heartbreak, and in so they kind of fall in love with the kind of the people they meet across the world. It's a really great movie. It's super. It's a Nancy Meyers movie. So you kind of know what you're getting there, which is usually like a really good rom-com with kind of a good ending. Well, maybe we'll cover that for season 2. But
Do we need to put together a season of nihilistic rom-coms or nihilistic romantic movies?
oh man, sure. Let's
Because John Cusack will be in a lot of them. Because you got Pushing Tin
it's true.
and the other one with the record shop with Jack Black in it.
Oh yeah, High Fidelity.
That's the one.
We should just do like a John Cusack so I can just watch Gross Point Blank again.
I'd love to say yes, but I've already seen Grosse Point Blank
Yeah.
as well.
But not enough people have. That's the thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So this is a genre I do genuinely really like. I have liked romantic comedies for pretty much my whole life, and I'm really excited to get into this season because I like discovering new romantic comedy movies, and I feel like
hmm
we don't always get movies that are guaranteed to end well. Because you know, every once in a while I'll be like, they fell in love. Everyone's so excited about this movie. What a great love story! And it's like, yeah, in the end they're all dead. The zombies got them. It's like, okay, never mind.
What? There is a zombie rom-com. There's several.
Oh, I
know there is.
I don't doubt it. There's probably way
one
more
of
than
them
that
stars
if you count
Nicholas
Troma movies.
Holt, who is a fantastic actor.
Yeah.
Wait, why you say OG?
No,
Is it Nicholas
that's
Holt?
not the movie, not the name I was expecting you to come up with.
Warm Bodies.
More, if there was ever a perfect title for a zombie rom-com, it is that.
Uh huh.
But I am excited because there are a couple of famous rom-coms here, sort of especially the last movie in our season I haven't seen, and there's some stuff that I like know of and haven't seen or haven't seen in like 30 years. So we got a good sampling of movies here that I'm pretty excited about.
I mean, like, out of curiosity, despite liking this genre, do you think that you are woefully under-equipped for the rom-com genre? Do you think it's like you've seen like 10 and they all hit really hard with you and the rest is just like a wilderness of who knows?
I don't know. Maybe I it's also, I guess the problem with the genre too is that it's very much up to what you're in for kind of a romantic thing. Like I know probably you talk to 50 people and you're like, "Hey, do you like Notting Hill?" And half of people are like, "Oh, yeah, oh man, yeah, it's so romantic. This the speech at the end, so good." Other people are like, "Oh god, it's the worst. It's the worst movie I've ever seen." You know, it's so down to personal likes on I guess romance movies in general, but especially rom coms. So I'm sure there's a ton of rom coms out there where I'm like, yeah, I've seen it. And it's just it's garbage trash. It's a hot dumpster in the sun, you know.
So, do we think that there is every single movie we're going to hit this season? Do we expect a movie speech? Because as soon as you said speech,
That's
I was
right.
like, oh crap. Rom-coms do have that
Getting
moment,
on the
don't they?
table at
Where
the company party at the end, be like, "I love this woman. I'll tell the world. I don't care." You know, like that sort of. I mean, you can't beat a good like romantic speech. "Don't get on that plane. I love you, and I don't care who knows." You know, that sort of that sort of thing. Spider-Man caught the
because
woman from falling off the building. "I've loved you forever." You know, that sort of
Jerry
thing.
Maguire
Like
has the
three of them.
speech.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
All different contextually related.
That's right. I'm just a girl standing in front of a painting telling Jude Law I love him. Um,
Get that reference.
I I feel like that's like the if you want to swing for the fences, that's what you do. You have the Hans Zimmer score come up as the man or the woman goes, "I've always loved you. We've gone through all this stuff. I backpacked across Europe for you. I also have some sort of horrible disease, but the Hans Zimmer score is making you cry."
Oh my word.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. It is kind of a trope at this point, but it works usually.
I mean, I think part of the thing here is I think romantic comedies in the, let's say, early 90s used to be easy. It's just a romantic comedy. The
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 two
pro-
most famous men and women in Hollywood star in a movie together. You put $50 million into it, and you got a winner.
yeah, and essentially carried on all the way through like the early 2000s.
Yep.
I give you The Proposal, Sandra
Oh,
Bullock and Ryan Reynolds.
I love The Proposal.
It's a great
It's
movie.
so good.
It's a really good movie. But nowadays, like it seems like it's spun out into like a million different like it's a subgenre. It feels like Mr. and Mrs. Smith,
Right.
the Brad no not the Brad Pitt, the Tom Cruise one where he's a secret agent as well.
Day and Night, I think it is.
That's the one.
Right. Well, and
Like these are action movies, but also rom-com movies. They're action rom-com as or act
one,
rom-com.
I feel like some of that is a kind of natural response to a trope getting solidified. Like in the 90s and the early 2000s, you kind of had a formula for these movies, and I feel like that has been kind of split into, if you look at the kind of Hallmark romantic movies. That's kind of a very solid, stable subgenre of the kind of the romance romantic comedy movies.
Hmm.
And then that has, like you said, I feel like that has branched off into whoops, it's a secret rom-com, and I got you in here with Tom Cruise. Whoops, he fell in love with this lady, and there's also they're shooting guns. Yeah, why not? So I feel like there might have been some response to tropes, but like sometimes I kind of like when a movie is just, yeah, you got the tropes. Like you got a meet cute. They're falling in love. They might not like each other at the beginning. Act 2 has a big fallout, and Act 3 they come in, and then everybody's crying at the end, and there's a happy ending. There's something to the comfort of that, I think.
Yeah, but it's also kind of like a Disney movie. Like Disney movies are tropish designed,
Yep.
and we might as well say Marvel movies now as
Sure.
well, especially like origin stories. It's the same story,
Yep.
time and time and time again.
Yep.
And that's fine. Like, depending on how you tell it, it can be either incredibly amazing or dumb and stupid.
Right.
Like,
Right.
there's a lot of like variety in there.
Yeah. It's true. So I guess the long and short is, I think we both like rom-coms. We're both looking forward to kind of checking out a sampling of 5 films across the decades here. And we're going to start here with the 20 Cents Long Shot. Let's go watch the film.
Yep.
We're back. I just finished watching this movie literally 5 minutes ago, so I am ready to start talking about it.
Oh, really? So we literally did this the direct opposite of each other.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where I watched it literally right after the show last week,
Oh, okay. All
and
right.
you watched it literally right before the show
Oh, man.
this week.
Yeah, so we're ready to talk here about Longshot. Um,
So before we get into it, I
uh
was thinking about this season,
Yeah.
during the things, and I have a suggestion.
Okay, I'd love to hear it.
Something to think about when we're watching the movies. Obviously, too late for one now, but we can do it.
Mm-hmm.
We need to discuss if there was a satisfying meat to bun to condiment ratio.
Okay, I'm gonna need a little
And by
bit more
that-
context.
And by that, I mean the basic 3-act structure of a romantic comedy, which we kind of discussed a little bit last week.
Sure,
Last
yeah.
week, in part
Yeah.
1, I should say. Which is, you've got the part 1, which is the meat cute.
Mm-hmm.
We'll call that the meat.
Gotcha.
Part 2, the conflict,
Mm-hmm.
which we'll call that the condiments.
The conflict
And
condiments.
part-
Yep.
And then part 3, the resolution, the bun, the topping on the cake kind of thing.
Okay.
So I think when we're talking about each of these movies in this season and sequential romantic
Mhm.
comedy seasons, we need to think about the meat to bun to condiment ratio and
Alright.
if it works nicely.
Okay.
This specifically comes up here because I have an issue with the meat to bun to condiment ratio in this
Gotcha.
movie.
Yeah, the sandwich ratio needs to be perfectly in balance. Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's why when I go to McDonald's, I don't order a double cheeseburger. I order 2 cheeseburgers because they have the best meat to bun to condiment ratio.
I see. It's all about that ratio. All right. Okay.
Mhm.
Also, special note here. Movie way more R-rated than I was expecting, so we're gonna have to talk around a lot of stuff. Just in general. So just fair warning about that. Still a clean show. Sort of. It'll be a little bit rough here. Also, note everybody is in this movie. A little bit,
yes.
Yeah, we knew Seth Rogen and Charlize Theron, who both are great. Ice Cube's son is in this movie as Fred's best friend, Lance.
Is that who that is? Okay, I did not know that.
Andy Serkis is in here, wearing a lot of prosthetics as the Parker Wembley.
I did not recognize that. Well, okay.
There's something about him. I'm like, well, that's a dude with a lot of prosthetics in it. I probably know who that is. It's Andy Serkis again. Just pop it up and everything. One of my favorite comedians, June Diane Raphael, is Maggie. You've probably seen her in like every comedy in the last 10 years or so. She's great. I don't think she gets enough work. I think she should be in everything. Bob Odenkirk as the president, which is just...
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get to it, but this very much feels like a get ready, folks. We're bringing politics into the movie that's got a politician in it.
Right. Shock of all shocks.
This feels like a left-wing movie to me.
Yeah, especially sort of at the beginning of the third act.
The beginning of the first act and the beginning of the third act, we'll say a left-leaning.
Sure, I think that's fair.
It does do some centrist BS right near the end.
Sure.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
Also, totally this is the Skarsgård I don't know, by the way, speaking of everybody in this movie.
I didn't know it was a Skarsgård until the credits, and I'm like, oh, right. Alexander. Right. Yes. That's right. The other one.
The one nobody talks about.
the other guy from Wham. It's him. And some bit parts from Randall Park, who I really like. He was Fred's boss. And Lisa Kudrow showing up again, who also is super underrated and does not show up in nearly enough stuff. And of course, Paul Scheer, who is the Wembley News anchor, the very clear Fox News. We respect women so much, we start with their bodies. It's like, oh god,
yes,
too on the nose. Ouch.
Some of the lines here felt a little too real, we'll say.
The most ripped from the headlines part of this movie turns out to be Fox News.
I wish I could remember. Maybe it was Life is Strange 2. Maybe it was. But there's been, like, the past couple of years we've played some games where it's like, no, stop. You're being too real.
That's right. No. Also, of special note, Boys to Men as themselves. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming along, Boys to Men.
I have zero experience with Boys to Men, by the way. Boy. They weren't an English thing at all.
No, yeah, that is the least surprising thing. They were fine. They were okay. The movie itself here. Go ahead.
The opening sequence, like, my first note is, oh, it's the Nazis.
Yeah, like over the opening credits, my wife and I watched most of this movie together before we ran out of time, and then we were both sitting down, and I was honest with her. I'm like, I don't know what this movie is about. I have very little knowledge. We have the poster sitting there. You know, it's the two of them. That's all I got, and it opens up with. Go ahead.
Funnily enough, by the way, we did put this poster in part 1 of the video, and it literally says Secretary of State right behind her.
Yes.
On the seal.
It does, yeah. But yeah, it opens up with just a full-on white power internet rant, and I was just like, oh no. Is this the movie? Nope, yep, there it is. It's Seth Rogen's there. Okay. We got the right one. All right. And just some of the best uncomfortable acting from Seth Rogen, especially getting the bottom half of a swastika tattoo. There's also a really great moment that I had to point out to my wife, that there's a dude in the background with a swastika tattoo, but it only has 3 spokes on it. The guy got like the bad tattoo off in the background. I think for me, I was sort of surprised about how much physical comedy is in this movie, especially him falling out the window and like smacking his face on that car. I was like, oh, you're okay, yeah, you're going for some stuff here. Wow.
Yeah, so this is one of those things, like, I think we've talked about it before. I don't like cringe comedy, so the Hangover series, that kind of comedy where it's like comedy at somebody else's expense.
That uncomfortable kind of nervous comedy.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan. I will watch it, especially considering what we potentially have on the docket in future seasons. I'll watch it. It doesn't mean I'm going to feel good about it. And immediately this made me think of Jackass, where it's just like I'm like shriveled up into the tightest ball I can get, going.
Right. Ooh, he hit his face. Oh. Yeah. Thankfully, there's kind of 2 big moments of that in this movie, and thankfully they don't really rely on that too much after this, which I think is pretty smart, because by the time we got the second one where he falls down the stairs, I'm kind of like, all right, I'm kind of I'm kind of at my limit for the physical comedy in this.
Yeah.
Both of them are good, but I'm glad that it's kind of over.
Mm-hmm.
I really like this opening scene with the president and Charlize Theron of him just like, I'm getting an act. I'm going to film. I'm taking the leap to film.
Can we talk about like her introduction? How it's like she is literally falling asleep, like sitting up on the bathtub, and then wakes up and the bath is overflowing, and then she's asleep on the floor when the phone rings.
Right.
It's just like, okay.
Yep. Yeah.
If only actual politicians work this hard, you know?
That's right. Working herself to the bone. Yeah. Which I think pays off pretty nicely later about the Game of Thrones stuff, which I think is a pretty good through line for the whole movie. I like that there's still like almost 2 years left in the president's term, and he's like, "Yeah, man, it's not how it was on TV."
Yeah,
the line about him trying to nuke a tsunami
is this is 100% a throw up of Trump, right?
I think it. I mean, part of it, but I think there's also some like just general, like, you shouldn't be in this role. There's also like I think it's kind of a send up of West Wing as well, a little bit too, about like, you know, there's a line later about like this show had like 3 good episodes and the rest of it was just kind of. I like West Wing a lot. Like, nobody, don't at me.
Don't put it on the list. I haven't seen it.
West Wing is impossibly long, and half of it is really good, and then just takes a nosedive in the second half. But yeah, there's very much a send up of all that stuff, and I like the.
Hold on.
Good.
I'm sorry. I need to know the actual literal release date of this. Hold on.
It is March 9th, 2019.
Oh no.
Mm-hmm.
So that came before Trump talked about nuking a hurricane.
Cool. Just Nostradamus writing this script here. Appreciate it.
Did Hideo Kojima have some part of this?
Like the first Strand movie? Yeah. So I like the introduction to that. I really like the Charlotte's kind of celebration after she left of just like, yeah, let's go, let's do it.
Yes, and that's when we get introduced to the PR crew, we'll say, which is Lisa Kudrow's starring moment.
Yep.
The wave. Can we talk about the wave?
The looping video of her doing like the most Elaine Bennis wave on film is just.
Who's Elaine Bennis?
From Seinfeld, Elaine. The famous dance.
Guess what else I haven't seen?
Oh boy. Okay. We're also not gonna add that to the list because that's a separate show.
Can we? We totally jumped over a too real moment here. By the way, I have several of these notes. People don't care about policies is too real.
Yes. Yeah. Lisa Kudrow just like throwing that line away of just like, people don't care about policies. Come on, don't be stupid.
Your elegance rating is 98, and
your humor rating is like 82. We can work on that. Yeah, the wave is.
Oh no. Mine is skipped to the end, but the Todd McFarlane drawing was actually a Todd McFarlane drawing, just so you know.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's pretty good. Todd McFarlane out there everywhere. I do like that intro to her. I like the intro to Fred here at the newspaper. That it got bought by Parker Wembley, who it's a very clear message about who Fred is as a character, that it doesn't matter what, he's going to stick up for his ideals. And he's clearly making the wrong choice. I like his boss is like, can I at least like fire you to get the severance? He's like, no.
It's
sending
so
a message.
It's such a good little joke. He loses his mind about media conglomerates, and rightly so, one might say. And like literally, he's like, I quit. It's like, please, just let me fire you.
He doesn't
He
even know
doesn't
who
even
you
know
are.
who you are.
Why are you sending a message? But he quits. He goes back. He spends some time talking to his friend, and his friend Lance gets him sort of out of where they were and goes and starts having kind of a night on the town. He drags him to go see Boys to Men at this fancy schmancy party where he's still wearing that windbreaker, which is
Yeah,
10 out of
can
10.
we talk about the windbreaker? The windbreaker is like, because that's literally one of my notes is like there's way too much of the exact same windbreaker and like trimmed down what is it called, tapered khaki pants. It's just like, dude, change your clothes.
That's right.
Please.
He's had a whirlwind day here, man.
That is true. Well, 2 days based on the all-night bender it looks like they've been on.
Yeah. So that's where Boys to Men are performing. Charlotte is there. We get the background of how Charlotte and Fred knew each other growing up, which is
It's a story. It sure is a story.
Pretty great story, and I like his. As soon as he starts telling it, it kind of all comes out at once, which is pretty true to life. Of just like, oh god, I'm gonna tell him everything. Oh boy.
And we literally can't talk about it on the show for very particular reasons.
No, yeah, but it's a very sweet story up until it, of course, takes the comedy turn, which is pretty great. I like that moment. As soon as he finishes telling the story, the like Secret Service agent is like, "Yeah, Charlotte wants to talk to you," and he's like, "Me? Oh no," and they have a pretty good chat. Like they're kind of
it's a really nice little meet cute. Like it genuinely is.
And I think it's pretty impressive how quickly they have some really good chemistry on screen. Like if there's I like this movie a lot, but if there's one thing to kind of mention first out of everything, it's that Seth Rogen and Charlize Theron have incredible chemistry this entire movie.
They do.
Which
it has a very good meat ratio, we will say.
That's
the
right.
meat cute. Get it now?
That's right.
That's why that's the meat.
Yeah. Our sandwich is coming together here. They get interrupted by Wembley, who's trying to bully Charlotte into a meeting the entirety of this movie, and then Fred takes Wembley to task and then falls down the flight of stairs.
No, we need to talk about him doing the self-control, like the twitches while he's actually with Charlotte.
It's just like the face that he's putting on is just like, I'm gonna stab him. Oh, I'm gonna kill him. It's literally the same day.
And like he only goes after him after Charlotte leaves. Well, leaves as in he's not talking with her anymore. That's when he goes after Wembley, and it's so good.
So really, what do you do, Fred? It's like, yep, I'm a journalist. Ha. Also, I like that Boys to Men gets a voice line here by saying "cracker down." It's really good. Thank you, Boys to Men. Two thumbs up. I feel like
she reads his stuff. Like it's a nice little transition. Like how the whole thing happens is she puts the pieces together as to why he lost his mind on Wembley, and fell down the stairs, and starts reading all of his stuff. And is like, look, he's got an opinion. He's got a voice. He's funny.
The titles of his articles are so good, like "F.U. Exxon," like just really good. And I like that. I like this whole scene of her just sort of being like, yeah, like I feel like he's got the right tone that I kind of want to craft here. I think it's pretty solid. I think I really like the moment where you kind of see the the full political power of Charlotte when she brings him in for what's ostensibly an interview, but not really. Kind of her just saying like, "Hey, you got the job." Like his thing of just like, "When do I have to get back to you? Like when do I let you know yes or no?" She's like, "Are you for seriously,
now?
Bro? Like right now?" And he goes, "Yeah, so no." I don't know. Maybe not. Just like...
And then, credit where it's due, Charlize Theron could be a very good politician one day because she does the speech, and he's like, "Okay, I'll do it." And then as she walks out the room, he's like, "Wait, what? What just happened?"
It's like, "Ah, she's good." Yeah, and then they start their kind of whirlwind tour around the world. They hit the World Leaders Summit where she's
wearing that windbreaker everywhere with like legit politicians.
Yeah. Him coming off of the plane, but like her, she's looking like super put together the entire movie, and him just right behind her, just being like, "Hey man, just here for going to run errands at Kmart today. Where am I? Oh yeah." I like the kind of prep they're doing for this. I like a lot of the scene.
Montage is great,
and I really like Charlize Theron's spit take when what's her name, Maggie? Yeah, Maggie's like, "I'm gonna get him dressed up. Don't even worry." And I'm like, "Dude, no one is. Everyone's buying this. Okay, cool." And just her spit take,
because she's so hyper serious, like the entire time. You don't get the like. She doesn't give off that air of being one of the quote unquote one of the boys in this little frat club that they've all got going on. She gives the impression of being the serious one of the group.
Right.
And then he's like, "Should I wear a suit?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'll take care of it. Don't you worry." And I was like, "Cool, okay." And then the suit he wears is fantastic. And that, like you said, that spit take and laugh as she turns around is just, it's so good.
And not only the reveal of it, but then he takes the jacket off and it's somehow worse. It's just it's really good. And then him running into the other guy that's wearing it outside the party who doesn't speak English. It's really, yeah, it's really good.
Nobody else is wearing this. Thanks for that, I guess.
Yep. It's really... but the thing that I respect a lot about this movie is even in the later on, there's the dinner and he's writing the speech and they have the moment outside where they're talking about the speech, and Charlotte is sort of saying like, "Hey man, like I'm losing support for some of this stuff."
Oh yeah, it's what is it? It's the trees, seas, and bees. I think it is. And he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna lose the seas because India won't go for it." And
right.
They run in and steal the laptop while everybody's having the fancy dinner.
It's a real, because my knee-jerk reaction to that was like, "Oh no, there's gonna be a huge scene because it's gonna be one of these romantic comedy movies." And I like that it's just the two of them like nearly silently sprinting over to grab the laptop and then sprinting back out, and it just Charlotte's faces are just like, what are you two idiots doing? Like, the world leaders are here.
Yep.
And then she comes out and says, "What are you idiots doing? The world leaders are here."
Yep.
Yep. And I really like...
I love the fact that like this whole like back and forth is fantastic. Like you used to stand for something. You used to like not back down from this kind of stuff. And she's also explaining the realities of the world, which is, yes, you kind of need American politicians. Lesson for you: hands across the aisle can actually go a long way to getting stuff done. I'm just saying.
Right.
And that goes to both sides. But she's breaking that down for him, and he's like, "Well, fine, whatever, but you can't give the speech now because the laptop's over there in the snow." And she's like, "Dude, we have copies. All you did was throw your laptop in the snow."
Oh man, yeah, and I really like that Fred is unmoving in his convictions throughout this entire thing, because when he's talking to Maggie, she's like, "Oh, we gotta change it. We gotta just throw out the C's. Don't worry about it. Just revise it real quick." And he's like, "No." She has a real good moment of like, "Oh man, you resigned. So sorry. Anyways, I'm gonna write it. Bye." And he gives the same thing to Charlotte, even though Charlotte is like, the two of them are stepping to each other. I really like that he's kind of like, yeah, no, like, I told you I didn't want to work for a politician that was just going to say one thing, and then as soon as the going gets tough, they're, oh, well, we can just not do this. We can just not do that. We can just, and he's like, and now you're doing it immediately. And that's not okay. And I like the moment that kind of brings them together, the Aurora Borealis, of just like,
Yep.
here's an incredible thing that maybe we should work to protect this dumb little planet we're on that allows us to be podcasters.
I can't remember where it takes place, but I think it's Maggie says it to him when he's dressed in that suit, where she says, "Calm the Smurf down," is a fantastic line.
I forgot about that. Yeah, that's a real, like, out of nowhere, she just drops that and then just moves on. Like, it's really... It's really good. And then Maggie, Charlotte gives the underdog speech.
Yes.
Right here, and kind of, I think it's the first time that she kind of sees him as someone who's kind of getting her, and I think it's, to maybe put it a little bit more plainly, I think it's attractive that she's making inroads to, like, she drops the 90210 joke in there, and everyone laughs. And there's a moment where Charlotte's just like, "Oh, okay, like,
yeah, because she's
this
nervous
is hitting."
when she drops that. Like,
right,
she's legit nervous. You can tell on her face she's a little hesitant about dropping that joke in there. And then when she delivers it and everybody laughs, she's like, "Oh, okay, no,
right.
like this is great.
We got something here." Yeah.
Which honestly, this leads to my favorite montages, because like this whole thing happens, and then she's like, "Okay, that speech was great. Let's do some more." Yep. And he's like, "Well, I was about to use a very inappropriate phrase right there. I kind of used everything I had on..."
That part comes later in the movie.
Yes, that comes later. I used everything I had with our history in that one speech, so I need to get to know you. So
this is such a great scene.
It's the question montage, which is one of my favorite.
The getting to know you.
Has like 4 montages, and this is a great one, because they both ask it backwards and forwards as well. It's not just one way. It's them pushing each other and figuring out, do you know what happened on TV shows? Yes, I read a synopsis on Wikipedia.
That's really good. When she drops some like late season knowledge about Game of Thrones, he's just like, no.
Because she sells it like she's seen it.
Well, and there's a really good moment too, because Fred shares an embarrassing story to Lance before he meets Charlotte. And then Charlotte shares an embarrassing story about having some gastrointestinal pyrotechnics in a bag, in a motorcade, to Fred. And I like that it's there's nothing like off the table. It really does feel like when you meet someone you click with, you're just telling them everything you possibly can about anything, like good, bad, and ugly. You're just kind of getting it all there. And again, the chemistry between the two of them, I think, is kind of at its best here on these. We're switching countries, we're in the plane, they're kind of catching 5 minutes here or there, or they're kind of spending a little bit more time in the plane. Like, I agree with you. I think it's one of the best scenes in this movie, that just all of it clicks between the editing and the shots and just the two of them together. It's all so good.
Yeah, and like they're pushing it as well. Like they're pushing each other's buttons all the time.
Yep.
The one where they're walking down the street and they're talking about favorite adult positions.
Yes.
Because he's like, yeah, you've got to get embarrassed. And she's like, no, I don't embarrass easier.
Yeah. And Maggie even has a good line of like, I can't even describe it to you. Like, it's too technical. I think that's real great. Yeah, that's what I like about that actor, the actor that plays Maggie. Is she's really good at just dropping like a grenade in a room and then leaving, kind of comedy wise. I like that a lot.
So good.
The next kind of big scene here is the revolution in Manila.
Yes, the hotel attack.
Yeah, which had, well, we'll get to it in a second, but they're really kind of clicking, and you have that moment where they're both looking into each other's eyes, and they're maybe thinking about coming together for the smooch, and then the bombing happens, and there's I like the moment of like we're right in front of the windows, like them kind of getting.
She's the one who clicks it. She's the
Yep.
one who's alert and aware to the danger, and she's the one who takes action, whereas he's in the middle of having a panic attack the entire time, which is very appropriate.
Mm-hmm. And the scene I really like, and my wife and I were both crying laughing at this, is where Charlotte and Fred are carrying the two Secret Service agents, and Charlotte has in like the fireman's carry, and Fred has her like upside down by one of the legs. Like, it's such an incredible shot and such a great reveal between Charlotte being like, "Yeah, I know, I got this handled," and Fred's just like, "Help, please, bombing this. We got to get out of here." And then they kind of have their romantic moment with the Navy SEAL countdown breathing thing in a basement during a bomb attack.
I like the line, "I don't want to make the same mistake I did, whatever it was, 20-something years ago." And very clear, it's like, yeah, it's not a mistake.
Right. And he's just like, oh, even I can get that hint. And they share a quick kiss that they get interrupted by with the cool Secret Service agent that I like. And then they get carried... they get evacuated on a helicopter to who knows where. Actually, no one does. I think we actually don't find out in the end where they were. But
no, we don't. It's just a real fancy building.
Yeah, like a hotel on the coast, and then they share a, let's say, a realistically quick romantic interlude, which is is really good. Where they both share the same phrase at the same time, which I thought is pretty good.
Yep.
And I think part of the thing that I like about this movie throughout so much of this is it's kind of her position in the world is so public facing and so big that the movie kind of feels not fantastical, but it feels a little bit large. And I like that you have these small moments between the two of them pretty consistently throughout the rest of the movie that I think kind of connects and grounds them a lot. I think it does a lot for the movie overall. Yeah,
like it feels solid the whole way down. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So there's kind of a lot that happens here where the two of them are connecting more. They go to another kind
This is the relationship montage is how I refer to this section.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's happening here. They go to another...
I like the Secret Service guy who's in on it as well, by the way.
Yeah.
Like the guy who knows.
Yeah, I like that everybody else is kind of... They're not exactly... I feel like it's almost like a very high school romance where it's just like, yeah, everybody knows you're dating, dude. Like, you're not keeping this a secret. Like, you're not as sly as you think you are. And it all kind of culminates to them going to another fancy party and Fred kind of getting jealous of all the kind of attention that she's getting.
Specifically from the Canadian Prime Minister, who has been an ongoing threat this entire movie.
And this is an interesting part, too, where Charlotte sort of sends the... God, what is his name? Parker Wembley off again. It's just like, man, I'm not finding time. You want to talk to me? I don't like you. I know what you're going to want to talk about. Just go away. We're not going to make time at all.
This is the straw that breaks the camel's back kind of situation for the bees, trees, and Bill.
That's right. The bees and trees, Bill. And it's interesting to see...
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I have a crush on you. And I found Hitler is one of the funniest text messages I will ever see in a movie.
The camera panning over to this dude and just like, yes, okay. There's also a throwaway line from him of just like, I think there's some some people that killed some of my ancestors here, hiding out here too. And I was like, oh,
Because
jeez.
they're in Brazil, and it's just like, come on.
Oof, God.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
It's...
We also, I forgot to mention in the unknown kind of beach hotel, we get the reveal of what the bottom half of the swastika tattoo has turned into, which is like a running guy, like a stick figure. Dude. Oh, it's really good. And then it's kind of interesting because Charlotte makes it pretty clear that this is like a work event, so she's going to be busy for the next couple hours. She'll maybe share a drink if she can later. And then he's getting a little jealous, and she seems like she's getting a little overwhelmed, so he invites her with that pretty great note to have a quick Pretty Woman dance, which is...
Sorry, I forgot to mention this note when the Swedish outfit was being worn, because it was such a good scene. You dress me like Captain Crunch's grinder date is one of the best lines.
I forgot about that. Yeah, that is a real... And what's so funny is, out of context, so many lines in this movie could read like a Judd Apatow movie. But they're used so sparingly, and they're used with like laser precision, and then they just deliver them, and then they're out. You know, like they have a handful of those throughout the entire movie, but that's not what this movie is. And I think I kind of like that level of restraint, that kind of level of, it's a romantic comedy, but it's still a romantic comedy. You know, this isn't Seth Rogen does stand up, which I think is pretty impressive.
Yes, it's really, really good. Some of the lines in this are quality. I can't remember. I think it's after the hotel attack, as the I've never been so scared in my life, and I was alone in an elevator with Saddam Hussein.
Yeah, that's later when she tells him she's in love with him.
Oh yes.
Yeah, like way at the end of the movie, like her kind of quietly crying at that moment. I'm just like, that's a really good. It's just me and Saddam. Like that was pretty great.
Yeah.
I think this is where Maggie gives Charlotte the presentation about...
Yeah, he's not good for dating. And also, this is around the same time we find out that she's been sleeping with the PA fella as well.
Tom, I think his name is. Tom. Yeah, that is also a pretty great scene of just there's that one really great line with Tom of where they get discovered that I think is really great. He doesn't get enough screen time in this movie, which is fine.
Not, no.
But he's got a couple of good lines in here. I do really like the comparisons that she has, especially the potato wearing a windbreaker, and that's just Photoshop of the potato with that windbreaker on. That's really... And
credit where it's due as well. She backs it down. She says, "No, I don't care. Like,
right.
I just don't care.
And
I see what you're saying,
right.
but I don't care."
And also, like, we're not talking about this. Like, this isn't like, you get to see that kind of Charlotte as president of like, no, we're not talking about this. This is not a thing I have asked you to do, so you don't get to do it. And it's like, hey, man, tell him.
Yeah, they get high in Paris.
The scenes of them kind of exploring the city and what does she say? Like smoking a Molly.
Also, the fact that she is now in the windbreaker is hilarious.
Yes,
by the way,
that's really good. All that stuff is pretty good. The scene that I thought was gonna be my least favorite scene turned out to be a really good one. Yeah, because like her having the stuff in her hair the entire time was is really great, and her I kind of the scene where she's in the kind of war room in the basement with the general or whatever, and her not being at her best.
Yes,
It's sort of I think it's this. You could probably cut the scene with Fred and Maggie where he's just like, "We're on drugs. What are you trying to tell? Like, we are on drugs." She's just trying to tell him the room is
she's
bugged.
waving, being like, "Don't talk in this room, dude."
Stop, dude. But I really like where
she gets real. Like,
yeah,
where
because
she,
she
picks up
slams
the
her
phone.
hands on the table and she's like, "Oh, that hurts so much. I'm not really feeling the anger. I'm feeling like more chill right now." And her having the real talk with the other guy, and her being like, I like the line of the other leader being like, "Wait, you hate the president too?" And it's just like, oh, okay, like, yeah, everyone hates the president, man. Like, he sucks. But
we have one thing in common: we both have to deal with him.
That's right. That's right. And I like just the real talk of like, she's even like, "Hey man, like right now you got to take care of a hostage, and that sucks." And he's like, "It does sucks. I hate it." And I was like, "This is." I love the thing of just like, "Yeah, I don't really want to take care of this hostage, man. Like this is really hard work." She's like, "Let's save lives," and then her busting into their room saying, very profanity laden, like, "Yeah, we got it." I was like, "All right, that's pretty good." And then her with the confetti in her hair still on the outside talking to the reporter was just really
yes,
great.
I have barely holding it together the entire time that she's out there.
Yeah, and she takes the opportunity. We missed it here because the president calls her in like some sort of blue like Skype tent or something. I'm not sure what that is. It says like, "Hey man."
It's basically a field tent. What's that field that radio signals don't get in?
Yeah, Faraday cage.
Thank you. It's a Faraday cage tent essentially, where basically the only signals can't be intercepted essentially.
Gotcha.
So
that makes more sense.
Yeah, it's a security thing.
Yeah, and he essentially says like, "Hey man, like little trees thing. You gotta
Let's
cut
get
that."
rid of the trees.
Yeah, he's like, "I ran it up the flagpole and it's ruffling feathers," and she's like, "You are the flagpole." And he has the one lucid moment in this movie. He's like, "There's a lot of flagpoles around here," which is surprisingly pretty good. So she takes the opportunity to lie and say like, "Yeah, the president just super supportive about the initiative. Yeah, really loves it. Full support. 2 thumbs up." Which
I don't even like bees. Is a great line.
Yeah, I liked that too. Just like, we can cut I don't even like the bees. And this turns into Charlotte gets called into the president's office, and lo and behold, Parker Wembley is there. Parker Wembley running the show in the president's office from the chair the president usually sits in, which I thought was a fun little touch.
Yes.
And just saying like, "Hey, we got a big old server farm we want to build in Alaska, and you're kind of putting it in the way of this 10-acre server farm." And I like that her knee-jerk reaction is just like, "Yeah, move the server farm." And Parker Wembley's like, "Yeah, you're just not getting it, man. Like, you can either play ball, or we can release this video that we hacked from Fred's webcam." And it starts off innocently enough and then turns into a whole thing. A whole thing that you see coming a mile away. No pun intended. I'm sorry. That was I heard it as soon as I said it. Sorry. I'm trying to erase it.
So this is the thing that makes me laugh, because I've seen a couple of movies now where Seth Rogen does that, and it's like it literally seems to be the thing that he does in movies these days.
That's right. Like Lance says, like, this is whatever. We all got our things, and Seth Rogen's like, "But it's not a thing, man." And it's like, I don't know, maybe. Been doing this in a lot of movies, man. But as he says, everyone does it. It's fine.
Because I think he's also, it's The Boys. He does it in The Boys too.
Oh, really? I haven't watched season 2. That's great. Oh,
I
man.
believe so. Yes.
Okay. Goodness. But I
yes, because it's on the call with the Crimson Countess when she's doing the OnlyFans thing.
Oh, okay. I gotta watch season 2 of that. I haven't even started that. Or I don't remember where I finished off. Anyways, I like that Charlotte. You kind of have this moment initially where Charlotte's like, I've taken the deal. Like I'm just gonna gut this whole thing. That's where I think this is where she says I don't even care about the bees. Like it just she doesn't care about it, and they have a moment afterwards in Fred's apartment where they're talking about, Maggie has someone who can clean up your internet history. We can work on you for a couple of months. Once we're on the campaign trail, we can bring you out. We can have you. We can give your debut. And he has that moment where he's like, you don't have to do this for me. And then a beat later, he's like, you're not doing it for me. Okay.
Yep.
And one of our concerns in the first part of this episode was like, how are you going to sell Charlize Theron in a romantic comedy with Seth Rogen? And I like that the majority of the movie is very much like Fred's character saying like, I know who I am. Like I'm historically a screw up, and like you're gonna be president. Like how do we even? I knew who I am, and like look at you. Like how are we even gonna make this work? And kind of shockingly and admirably, he doesn't agree to the plan, like the cleanup plan. He doesn't want his stuff. I really like the line of like, I don't remember what, how it gets started, but Charlotte says something like, I have to be on guard all the time. Like I kind of have to be perfect. And Fred is like, what? Why? Because you're a woman? And she turns out like, yeah, swear word. And he's like, oh, that's fair. That was on me. It's just like, it's just like, yeah, man.
She breaks it down earlier in the movie, like in the interview scene. She's like, look, if I'm loud, I'm hysterical. If I'm emotional, and she breaks down that whole
I'm
thing
a B
about
word,
in
like,
politics, which is correct.
Right.
And like, it's such a good like. I got the impression when they go into this conflict scene where she's giving him the offer and he says no, she knows he's saying no.
Yeah, like she can sort of feel it coming.
She's expecting him to say no, which is why my theory at the time was she's going in there with that offer knowing he says no so they can break up amicably, rather than her dump him and then he gets heartbroken, or him dump her and she gets heartbroken.
Right.
She goes in like a politician with a plan so that it ends peacefully rather than with one side hating the other.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we talked about the kind of ending of Act 2, them falling apart, them breaking up sort of thing. And I like in this movie, it is because ideologically they're different. It's not because one of them cheated on the other. It's not because, some great misunderstanding happened between her and the Canadian Prime Minister. It's nothing like that. It's that she needs to compromise, and he's telling her, you can't. Like, you can't for something that has mattered to you since you were 16. Like, this...
Yeah.
You can't compromise on this. And I like that the rift between the two of them wasn't... You two need to talk about this photo that someone took with you and someone else. It's, an ideological issue, which I really appreciate. Kind of bucking the trend. And yeah, they break up and they're kind of spending a bunch of time away from each other. They're both kind of licking their wounds for a while. Charlotte is watching Game of Thrones and seemingly way into it, which is pretty nice. And there's a kind of weird scene between Fred and and Lance in Lance's apartment where Fred is just like, yeah, screw the Republicans.
This is the Republican scene?
Yeah, like, screw the Republicans. Like, you're on the wrong side of it. Don't reach across the aisle to them. Like, they're Republicans, whatever. And Lance is like, man, I'm a Republican. And I like Lance's thing of just like, it's been working out pretty well for me as he stands in their gigantic New York City apartment. Like,
but the hilarious thing to me is he touts the traditional Republican values,
right?
Not the modern day Republican values, which as he did pull himself up by his bootstraps. He did do this,
Right.
that, and the other, which is according to traditional Republican values. It's like, you're not a modern day Republican, dude. That's a
Right.
whole different ball game.
Right. And it's an interesting scene because I think they ultimately get to the point for both Charlotte and Fred that they're trying to get to. For Fred, which is like, maybe sometimes you need to see it from someone else's position. Like, you should stick up for your values and you should stick up for the things you believe in, but maybe not 100% of the time. Maybe sometimes it's okay to see what another person is dealing with. Like, that's okay. And
like he gets the you need to be willing to hear the other side. You may not agree with it, but at least hear it.
right.
And she gets the sometimes you can't compromise. Like,
Right.
Sometimes you just can't.
Right. And yeah, sometimes you can't and sometimes you shouldn't. And I like that the movie respects the viewer enough to not just like look in the camera and be like, wink, like, like it's not laying it all the way out. Like, like with Charlotte, the movie just kind of lays it out there. And it's a very sweet, quote unquote, voicemail that Fred leaves Charlotte on the phone of just like, I will follow the plan. Like, you can LBJ put a ring on it. That'd be okay with me too. I'll be your Marilyn. And sort of saying like, if I want to, I would rather spend time with you and be together than worrying about, I guess, my articles being on the internet and all this other stuff. And I like that the
well, she hits a milestone, which was the plan. Is you get 100 countries, then you quit as Secretary of State, and then now you're running for the president and presidency.
Right.
And I love the fact that she just halfway through the speech, she's just like, "Yeah, no, I'm done."
Little Yachty is very excited about her just telling the truth. But yeah, I like that she is just like, hey man, Parker Wembley and the president are doing some evil stuff and they suck. So like, I should probably tell you this because it's not okay. And B's, Trees, and C's is way better. And I wouldn't want 16-year-old me to be disappointed in what I'm doing right now. I'm going to go get my man. And then Parker Wembley being like, release the... There's like a really great scene of him being so angry he like spits a little, which I think is a really great piece of acting. It's just like, yeah, release the video. And Lance immediately watches it in the car with Fred as they're going to wherever Charlotte was giving the speech. And I like that Lance is like...
I like the fact that there is no big meetup in public with a bunch of cameras.
No, like
the
they cross
miss
paths.
each other.
Yeah, like I really like the delivery that Lance's actor does, where like the first question that Fred has is like, "Do you think this is going to go viral?" And Lance is like, "It's on the news." It already did, dude. But I agree. I think they don't kiss on stage in front of everybody with those dumb signs. Like, they're back in his apartment, and she's waiting there for him to just say like, "I'm scared as hell because I love you." And I like the line too from her being like, "I really need you to say something because I'm freaking out right now." he has said something for minutes, and him just saying like, "Look, I've loved you since I was 12," like, and then smooch smooch kiss kiss. And they kind of
montage essentially.
Yeah, and then they essentially cut to Yoshi's president. He's very happy to be the first Mister. He finds out who killed Kennedy, which is just like,
Shush.
Yeah. She's like, don't. I'm not even joking right now. And he's like, it's not who you expect. Like we talked about earlier, the Todd McFarlane first Mister painting, which is I like that he's like, Todd McFarlane, he drew Spawn. I was just like, oh my god.
It looks like a Todd McFarlane.
Yeah, Todd McFarlane original. Yeah, but I like that he is way into his role, and I like that the supporting that they do for each other, and the last lines are really cheesy, but it got me a little teary. Like it's a good happy ending. I think it kind of puts a good capstone on the movie overall.
So my 3 questions.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Before we'll do that, then we'll do the ratings, and then we'll talk about kind of our final thoughts here.
So number 1, did we get the feels?
I think I did, especially in that kind of last scene with them and the kind of confession scene of like, I love you, and it's like, of course we love each other, duh.
It was really good, and that Saddam Hussein line is fantastic too.
Yep.
Do we feel like the jokes landed? Because this has some jokes that push the boundaries, we'll say.
Sure.
Like you said, it's much more R-rated than we realized.
Yep.
Majority of them landed with me, like 100% of the time. They all landed. Even the awkward hacking video kind of landed with me because it was like awkward in a funny way. And it's just like, I could see this happening behind closed doors. In fact, 100%. I'm sure it does happen behind closed doors on a regular basis.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we were talking about earlier about, this isn't a Judd Apatow movie, so it's not bam, 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 one joke after another. But I agree. I think the majority of everything they had in this movie landed, or kind of at least wasn't like, oof, that's bad. Like there wasn't anything in there that's like, that's yikes, that was a bad joke. But
yeah,
I think it worked really well.
And finally, do we think this movie has a satisfying meat to bun to condiment ratio? I'm gonna say no.
Okay, I'm curious to hear why.
Because I think that the conflict was too short. It felt like the movie took its time to get a lot of the first and the second act done. That third act felt like it was about 2 seconds long. Like it was conflict, 2 minutes, resolution, done. I was just like,
See, I kind of like that though, because the thing that drives me crazy in so many like romantic movies or romantic comedies is always that thing of like we were talking about before, like he was, they're on the outs, he's meeting up with his sister and they're having lunch and she thinks that's his new girlfriend, and no one talks to each other, no one actually has an adult conversation about it. And I like that the conflict in this one was about ideologies, and it wasn't about these misunderstandings. Even he looks at his phone and there's an article about the dinner that Charlotte and the Canadian Prime Minister have, and he's sort of like, yeah, okay, like that's how it goes, like that's if she's moving on, then she's moving on, that's fine. I mean, she can hang out with that guy with the weird laugh, no big deal.
Yes.
I kind of like that they kind of shortened some of the Act 2 and Act 3 stuff, because I think the stuff for me that, at least in long shot, is more satisfying, I guess is probably the right word, is the like getting to know you montage. It's the romance montage. It's like the happy honeymoon kind of stuff that happened in like Act 1 and 2, and I like that they kind of got to the conflict and then they acted like adults and they got through it, like they worked through it.
Yes, that was appreciated. For me, it was mostly just it felt like the conflict was way too short.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah.
Yes, and my 3 questions.
Okay. Sorry, I lost track of which number we were on.
We're good.
Rotten Tomatoes tomato meter is 81%, audience score is 74%, and Letterboxd has this at a 3.3. I would rate it way higher than a 3.3. I'm probably in the 4 range here, because I think pleasant surprise here.
Yeah, I think I would probably put it in 4s if you're doing on a 5 scale, and 8s and 9s if you're going on a 10 scale.
Yeah, I'm probably in like the 4 to 4.5 scale. I really liked this movie. I think it is a pleasant surprise. I now I can see why people recommend it. As like, hey, if you like romantic comedies, you should watch Long Shot, because it turned out it's really good, and it's an adult kind of take on this thing, kind of in content and language, but also like these are two adults that are just gonna talk to each other. She's the president of the United States. She knows how to talk to people. She's gonna work through it.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm
It's
pleasantly
a solid
surprised.
movie all the way around. It's definitely one of those where it's like, yeah, if you haven't seen it, you should definitely go check this one out.
Yeah, and I think this is probably one that if I'm looking for something that's kind of a really solid romantic comedy, or I'm looking to kind of have a laugh and get the feels at the same time, I'd probably watch this again. I'd be like, oh yeah, I should watch Long Shot. I'm looking to watch something. I'd be pretty happy to watch this again. So
Yeah, same.
yeah. All right, that's our first of 5 movies. We captured a movie that's is kind of a little bit more recent. So for the rest of the episodes here, we're gonna go back through some previous decades films, and hope you join us for those. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.